My friend Jimmy Dore was just talking about this the other day in a video. It was this beautiful, like, nice neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Tree-lined streets and
cottage homes, dear sweet neighborhood. It was,
and gone.
Yeah, gone.
One of the nice neighborhoods, I mean, like a beautiful neighborhood to drive through.
Yeah,
it's gone.
And those people mostly, Joe, as you know, so many of them, there's no safety net.
Right.
I mean, very moderate income.
Right.
You know, working class, hard working class people. And I've been telling all the elected officials, you got to have programs that start supporting people because they are down and out. They have nowhere to go. And we've got to do something to help them, you know, day to day to live.
One of the things that was bothering me was they were talking about replacing all those beautiful streets that were filled with single-family homes with big apartment buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would just ruin that area.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it. It's wrong. Yeah, this is not the time to be reimagining anybody's neighborhood off the backs of the devastation and the pain. I've been really vocal about that. And this is, you know, this is the creep you get, what you're talking about, this social justice. Well, now let's say in the Palisades, let's start building a whole bunch of low-income housing. I'm all for low-income housing. I'm building workforce housing for our employees that are low income because I want to make sure they have a home. So I'm all into that. But now's not the time to do it in a neighborhood that's been devastated. And there's also, you're going to have people that won't be able to move back to their neighborhood because they may not be wealthy, but they may make more money than what is required to move into a low-income apartment. They can't move back. Don't do that. That's not fair. If you want to do that, what I've told the elected officials is provide an incentive, not a requirement. If you build some low-income units in an apartment building you're replacing, let me back up. So we have this crazy law in the city of Los Angeles. The crazy law in the city of Los Angeles is something to this effect. I may not get it exactly right. If you tear down an existing apartment building that's market rate, you have to replace it with low-income housing. Okay. I think
all of it?
Maybe it's not all of it. I think it's the majority of it. But whatever the number is, okay? My point is, when you do that, you provide a disincentive to reinvest in the city.
Yeah.
So let's turn it around and provide an incentive. Say if you close, knock it down and rebuild, or it's burned down in the Palisades and want to rebuild, then give a bonus density and allow that person to build more to compensate them for providing housing that is low income, right? It just seems to be more fair. Everybody gets what they want.
How would you do that? How does that work?
Well, let's say you have a 12-unit apartment building that burnt down in the Palisades. Instead of requiring low-income housing for, let's say, 20, 30, 40% of it, say instead of building 12, we're going to let you build 20 units. And out of the 20 units, give us 6 units that are low-income housing, whatever the numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
But let's have government start thinking about an incentive-based system, right? I mean, you look at your life or my life or the people that work here, the harder you work, the more that you do, you're more rewarded, right? You're not required to work harder. You're incentivized to work harder or work smarter. And I think if we build that kind of thinking into government to provide capital, to provide investment, especially on the rebuilding, you can have some social policies that are very important and very good, like low income. What I would even say is, why don't we give an incentive to build workforce housing in the Palisades and Altadena, where the workforce housing goes to the first responders, firefighters, police, and teachers. So now you can have firefighters, police, and teachers living in the neighborhoods they're serving. As you know, LA is so expensive, most of the cops drive 2 hours to get home and 2 hours to get to work. Same with the firefighters. You want them to be in the neighborhood they serve. That's a great public policy. Do it around an incentive.
Especially in a place like the Pacific Palisades, I think people deeply resent the idea of being forced to have any kind of low-income housing. The idea is that it's hard to live in the Palisades. It's expensive. It's beautiful. It's an incredible piece of land or it was,
Yeah.
before the fires devastated it. It was a glorious place to live, and
Yeah.
it was very difficult to afford to live there. So the
true.
people that made the most money were the ones who could buy the homes there. They don't want someone to open up low-income housing in the same neighborhood that's very difficult to live in. The whole idea is that you make enough money where you could live in a place that's very difficult to live in, but it's beautiful and it's really safe. And that's what the Palisades was. They
Right.
don't want this to be replaced with low-income housing. They don't want incentives for it to be replaced with low-income housing.
Yeah, I don't know, Joe. I think there's a lot of people that would be very excited to have workforce housing, especially if you tie your workforce housing into first responders. And I think there's people that would allow.
That's different, though. That's
It
different than
is.
apartment buildings.
Yeah, but even in an
low-income apartment
but
buildings.
even in an apartment setting, I think it can work. I mean, listen, I think there's people in the Palisades that would very much welcome affordable housing, low-income housing. I certainly would, and I'm a big landowner in the Palisades. But what I don't like about it is the requirement
Right.
off the backs of people who have lost everything.
Right.
That's just not right. That's not the time to do it. If you want to go rezone stuff, let the place get rebuilt and let people get back on their feet and then go have that discussion.
Right.
You know, it's a timing issue on it, in my opinion. But listen, there's a lot of issues the city's got to tackle to get these places rebuilt. It's immensely complicated. And again, I mean, I'll be very honest. The government just cannot do it alone. There's just no way. There's just no way.
One of the things that people